My name is Lucy Connors, and I was 18 years old when my parents decided I no longer belonged to them. That morning started like any other. The smell of coffee drifted through the kitchen's sunlight, spilled across the tiles, and for one fleeting second, I thought maybe they'd remembered it was my birthday. I half expected a small cake, maybe even a card. Something simple. Something that said, "You still matter here." But when I walked in, everything felt wrong. My father was already seated at the table, his hands folded, his expression unreadable. My mother stood at the sink, scrubbing the same plate over and over, though it was already spotless. No one said happy birthday. No one even looked up. "Morning," I said softly, trying to sound casual. The silence pressed down like fog. Then my father exhaled, set down his mug, and said, "Lucy, you're 18 now. It's time you start living on your own." At first, I thought he was joking. I laughed one of those nervous laughs that die too quickly. But his eyes didn't move. They stayed fixed on me like a judge delivering a sentence. "What do you mean?" I asked. "You're kicking me out." "It's not kicking you out," he said flatly. "It's helping you grow up. You're an adult now. You should learn to stand on your own 2 feet." Behind him, my mother still wouldn't turn around. Her knuckles were white against the dish she kept rinsing. The sound of running water filled the space where her voice should have been. "Mom," I whispered, hoping she'd look at me. "Are you okay with this?" She hesitated, her shoulders tensed, but she didn't turn. "It's for your own good, Lucy," she said, her tone thin and rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in her head all morning. Something inside me began to ache slow and deep. "I don't understand," I said. "I've done everything you asked. I help around the house. I work part-time. Why now?" My father's gaze drifted toward the counter. I followed it, and that's when I saw it, a sealed white envelope labeled in his handwriting Daniel's college fund. My throat tightened. "So that's it," I said quietly. "You're making room for him." His jaw clenched. "Don't make this about your brother." "But it is about him," I said, my voice cracking. "It always is." The air felt thick, heavy with things unsaid. Years of comparison. Years of being the difficult one, the daughter who didn't fit into their mold of obedience. Daniel, the golden boy, could do no wrong. And me, I was just tolerated. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg, but the words caught somewhere between my heart and throat. My father stood pushing his chair back with a screech that made me flinch. "You'll leave today," he said, voice firm but trembling at the edges. "We've talked about this long enough." "I didn't even know we were talking about it," I said bitterly. He turned away. "Pack your things." The finality in his tone shattered something inside me. I waited for my mother to stop him to say something, anything, but she just stared at the running water, tears silently mixing with the stream. So I went to my room, the one that still smelled faintly of lavender from when I was little. I sat on the bed, staring at the posters, the books, the soft glow of the fairy lights I'd strung months ago. All the little pieces of my life I'd built in this house, about to be stuffed into a duffel bag. My hands shook as I packed. Every folded shirt felt like a goodbye I didn't get to say. I could hear them murmuring downstairs, their voices low and deliberate. Part of me wanted to eavesdrop, but I couldn't bear to hear how easily they justified it. When I finally stepped back into the living room, the duffel strap cutting into my shoulder, my father didn't even look up from his coffee. My mother turned briefly, her eyes red, but cold. "Are you really just letting me go like this?" I asked. She swallowed. "We're doing what's best for you." "For me," I whispered. "Or for you?" Neither of them answered. So I walked out. The door creaked shut behind me with a sound that felt far too final. Outside, the morning air was sharp and bright. I stood on the porch staring at the house, the curtains, the flower pots, the place that had shaped me and then spit me out. I wanted them to come after me to say they didn't mean it, but the door stayed closed. When I finally stepped off the porch, it hit me not just the betrayal, but the emptiness. The sudden, terrible understanding that home wasn't a place anymore. It was a memory I no longer had permission to keep. When that door shut behind me, I wasn't just leaving home. I was being erased. That first night, I told myself it was temporary. Just a misunderstanding, a cooling off period. Surely they'd call tomorrow, tell me to come home. But the call never came. By midnight, I was sitting in my car with everything I owned shoved into a single duffel bag. The street lights cast long orange shadows across the dashboard, making my face look like someone else's. The silence was too much, so I turned on the radio, just to feel less invisible. A cheerful song about love filled the air, mocking me. The next few days blurred. I went from friend to friend, couch to couch. Everyone was polite at first, sympathetic even. Of course, Lucy, stay as long as you need. But sympathy has an expiration date. Within a week, excuses started piling up. My roommate's not cool with guests. My boyfriend's staying over a lot lately. You'll figure it out, right? You always do. Each sorry chipped away at something inside me. The same friends who used to call me their ride or die suddenly couldn't make eye contact. On the fourth night, when I found myself sitting in my car again, the loneliness hit me hard. I leaned back in the seat, watching the condensation form on the windows. Every breath clouded the glass until my reflection disappeared completely. That's when I realized what homelessness actually feels like. It isn't just losing a roof. It's losing witnesses. People stop seeing you. You become invisible by degrees. Days turned into weeks. I parked behind gyms, grocery stores, quiet streets, wherever no one would ask questions. I used my gym membership to sneak in for showers, brushed my teeth in gas station bathrooms, and kept a bottle of dry shampoo in the glove compartment like it was gold. Every morning I'd drive to a new spot before sunrise just so no one would notice I'd slept there. The back seat became my bed, the trunk, my closet, the dashboard, my nightstand. I learned how to fold my life into corners and silence. Sometimes when I couldn't sleep, I'd scroll through my phone looking at old family photos. Mom laughing as Daniel blew out his candles. Dad's arm around both of us. Me always slightly out of frame. I'd zoom in on my mother's smile, trying to convince myself she'd meant it back then. I tried calling her once, just once. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Mom, I said when she picked up. A pause. Then flatly, Lucy. Yeah, it's me. I just wanted to check in. Her sigh felt heavier than words. What do you need? That tone, the way she said it, like I was a stranger asking for money, cut deeper than anything my father had said. I was wondering if I could come home for a bit, I said quietly. Just until I find a place. I'll pay rent, I swear. I need a little time. Another pause. I could hear the faint hum of the dishwasher behind her. We already discussed this, she said finally. You're an adult now. You need to figure this out. Mom, I'm not asking for much. It's time for you to learn responsibility. Her voice had that same rehearsed detachment from the day I left. The same tone she used when she was pretending not to cry. Okay, I whispered. Got it. I didn't say goodbye. I just hung up, staring at the black screen until my reflection stared back. My eyes were red, my hair tangled my face thinner than I remembered. That moment broke something clean inside me. After that, I stopped calling, stopped asking, stopped hoping. From then on, survival was all that mattered. I applied for jobs anywhere that had Wi-Fi $8 meals in my car and learned to pretend everything was fine whenever someone looked my way. I became a ghost with a pulse. Some nights I'd park behind a supermarket and watch people walk out with groceries, kids running to the car, laughter echoing through the lot. It wasn't jealousy that burned in my chest, it was grief. For something I used to have and didn't know I'd lose so soon. The worst part wasn't hunger or fear. It was waking up before dawn, the windows fogged over, realizing I had nowhere to be, no destination, no expectation, just another day to endure. There was one moment I still can't forget. I was parked behind a 24-hour fast food place trying to rest when a flashlight beam cut through the window. A police officer knocked on the glass. Miss, you can't stay here. My voice came out small. I'll leave. Just give me a second. He sighed. Clearly used to this. You shouldn't be out here alone. Find somewhere safe, all right? I nodded, started the engine, and drove off. My chest tight with shame. It wasn't anger I felt. It was humiliation. Like I'd failed a test everyone else seemed to know the answers to. I remember pulling over at a gas station after that, staring at the blinking neon lights and whispering to myself, you can't cry. Not here. And so I didn't. I just breathed one shaky breath at a time, promising myself that this wouldn't be the end. That someday, somehow, I'd drive the same car into a life that didn't hurt to live. That night, parked behind a grocery store, I realized I wasn't homeless, I was discarded. There's a certain rhythm to rock bottom. Mornings blur into afternoons, nights stretch endlessly, and the days begin to sound the same like static. You stop counting time by dates and start counting it by showers, meals, and the number of times you can charge your phone before the library closes. That's where I was when it happened, sitting in the corner of a public library using the free Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. My back ached from sleeping in the car, my eyes were burning from exhaustion, and every email felt like a coin tossed into a well with no echo. Then, one afternoon, I got a reply. Hi, Lucy. We'd like to schedule an interview for the retail associate position at West Point Outlet. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen, blinking, afraid it would disappear. I whispered the words out loud, as if saying them would make them real. The interview was the next morning. I pulled my cleanest shirt from a grocery bag, ironed it using the car's dashboard heater, and prayed no one would look too closely. When I arrived, the manager, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and the faint smell of coffee, looked up from behind his desk. "Lucy Connors?" he asked. "Yes, sir," I said, trying to sound confident, though my hands were trembling. "I'm Tony," he said, smiling slightly. "You've worked retail before." Once I lied, but I'm a quick learner. He studied me for a moment, the kind of look that sees more than you want to reveal. Then he said, "All right, let's give it a try. Minimum wage, but steady hours. Can you start Monday?" I nodded so quickly my hair fell into my face. "Yes, absolutely." Walking out of that building felt like stepping into sunlight after weeks underground. It wasn't just a job, it was proof that the world hadn't completely forgotten me. The first week was brutal. My feet hurt constantly, my back ached, and I was always one mistake away from collapsing in tears. But Tony never yelled. If anything, he seemed to know when to step in with a quiet, "You're doing fine, kid. Keep it up." That tiny bit of kindness meant more than he'd ever know. Within a month, I fell into a rhythm gym. Showers at dawn work from 9 to 6. Eat cheap takeout in the car. Sleep repeat. The paychecks were small, but the feeling of holding money I'd earned was electric. I started saving every dollar I could, even if it meant skipping meals. A few weeks later, luck hit twice. A coworker mentioned her roommate was moving out and offered me the spot. The apartment was tiny, 2 rooms, creaky floors, no air conditioning, but to me, it was paradise. That first night, I lay on the bare mattress, staring at the ceiling. No car alarms, no flashlight taps, no fear of being told to move, just stillness. I smiled in the dark for the first time in months. For a while, it almost felt like a new beginning. But life never lets you get too comfortable, does it? 3 months in, rumors started circulating about the virus, people getting sick, businesses closing. At first, we joked about it at work, wiping down counters and pretending it wasn't serious. Then one afternoon, the phone rang. Tony called everyone to the front of the store. His face said it all before he even opened his mouth. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Corporate's shutting down all branches. We don't know for how long." The silence that followed was deafening. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Not again. Not after everything. After the shift, Tony called me aside. "You've been one of the hardest workers here," he said. "Don't give up. Things have a way of turning around." He handed me my final paycheck and something small folded in his hand, a $20 bill. "For gas or food," he said when I tried to refuse. "Don't argue." That night, I went back to the apartment, sat on the floor, and stared at the check. It was barely enough for 2 weeks of rent. My roommate, who also lost her job, was already packing. "I'm moving back with my parents," she said softly. "You'll figure it out, though, right?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, I always do." But when she left and the apartment echoed empty, my chest caved in. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound left. I folded the check carefully, slid it into my pocket, and whispered to myself, "You've done this before. You'll do it again." By the end of that week, I was back where I started sleeping in the car. Only this time, it hurt differently. Not like a fall, but like a cruel circle completing itself. As I stared up through the windshield at a blank gray sky, I couldn't help but think of something Tony had said on my last day. "You've got fight in you, Lucy. Don't lose it." So I didn't. I cried until there was nothing left, then took a deep breath and started the engine. The day I packed my things again, I didn't cry for the home I lost. You can't cry for the same wound twice. The second time I became homeless, it didn't feel like falling. It felt like surrendering. The first time I'd fought, calling my mother, begging friends, holding on to hope. This time, there was none of that. I just packed my bag, locked the door behind me, and drove into the night like someone leaving their own life behind. It was late March. The city was eerily silent. The streets, once full of noise and movement, were empty storefronts, dark sidewalks abandoned. Even the air felt thinner, like the world itself was holding its breath. I parked behind an old warehouse district that looked forgotten, the kind of place where no one would notice a car tucked into the corner. For the first few nights, I barely slept. I kept waking up at every sound, the wind rattling a loose sign, the echo of footsteps that might have just been in my head. And then one morning, while I was sitting in the car half asleep, a man knocked on my window. I jumped so hard I hit my head on the roof. He was older, maybe in his late 50s, wearing a faded uniform and a ball cap with the name Thompson Logistics stitched on it. He squinted at me through the glass. "You all right in there?" I hesitated, lowering the window an inch. "Yeah, just resting." He crossed his arms, studying me. "You've been resting in that same spot 3 nights in a row." I froze. I'll move. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." He waved a hand. Relax, not kicking you out. Just making sure you're not in trouble. His voice was gruff, but not unkind. You looking for work? I blinked. Work. He nodded toward the warehouse behind him. We're short on hands. Loading, sorting, long hours. Nothing fancy, but it's steady. My first instinct was disbelief. People didn't just offer things like that. Not to someone like me. I'd do anything. Come inside tomorrow, 7 a.m., he said. Ask for Mr. Thompson. I stared after him as he walked back toward the warehouse, his boots echoing against the concrete. For the first time in months, the air didn't feel so suffocating. The next morning, I showed up before sunrise. My hands were shaking as I pushed open the heavy metal door. The smell of dust oil and cardboard filled the air, and a few workers were already moving boxes onto pallets. Mr. Thompson spotted me immediately. You showed up, he said with a faint smirk. Didn't think you would. I said I would, I replied. Good. Let's see if you can handle real work. The first week was brutal. My arms ached, my back screamed, and by the end of each day, I could barely lift my hands to the steering wheel. But pain meant progress. Exhaustion meant I had something to wake up for. Every morning, I'd see Mr. Thompson watching from his office window, coffee in hand, nodding slightly when I showed up early. He didn't say much, but I could tell he noticed. Yeah, it's all tall. After my second week, he stopped me before I left. You live around here. My stomach twisted, sort of. He studied me for a long second. You staying in that car? I froze. It's temporary. He sighed through his nose. If you're gonna stay parked near the loading dock, power outlet's there. No one will bother you. I stared at him, unsure if I'd heard right. You mean I can stay here? Just don't make a mess, he said, already walking away. And don't think I'm doing you a favor. You show up late even once you're gone. But I knew better. He was doing me a favor, just when he refused to call kindness. That night, I parked by the loading dock, plugged in a small lamp, and turned on the tiny heater I'd found at a thrift store. The warehouse lights glowed faintly through the metal siding, and for the first time in forever, I felt safe enough to close my eyes without fear. Weeks passed, and I built a routine. I worked until my hands blistered, saved every cent I could, and spoke only when necessary. Mr. Thompson started trusting me with more responsibility, organizing shipments, training new hires. He even started calling me by name. Lucy, he'd say, handing me a clipboard. You're sharp. Don't waste it. There were nights when I'd sit in my car after work, staring at the warehouse lights flickering off, one by one, whispering a quiet promise to myself. This won't be forever. One evening, as I was finishing a shift, Mr. Thompson walked up beside me. You know, he said, his tone softer than usual when things start going right again. Don't tell everyone. Not everyone wants to see you win. I looked at him confused. Why? He shrugged. Some folks like you better when you're struggling. Makes them feel safer. I didn't fully understand it then, but later I'd realize how true it was. Over the next few months, my savings grew. Slowly, quietly. Every paycheck went into a small envelope in my glove compartment. I didn't buy anything unnecessary, not even coffee. Each dollar was a brick in the foundation of a future I hadn't dared to imagine. Then, one afternoon, I saw it. A listing online for a manufactured home, 3 rooms, small yard, affordable. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine if I wanted it. I printed the picture and taped it to my dashboard. Every morning, I'd glance at it before starting the engine. It became my goal, my anchor, my finish line. One night after a long shift, I stood outside the warehouse, looking up at the stars barely visible through the haze. My arms were sore, my body exhausted, but my chest felt light. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving out of fear. I was surviving for something. For the first time in years, I wasn't dreaming of escape. I was dreaming of arrival. The first time I stepped inside my new home, I cried. Not the loud, messy kind of crying, but quiet tears that fell without warning. I ran my fingers along the walls, still warm from sunlight, and whispered, "You're mine now." The house wasn't perfect. The linoleum floors were scratched. The windows creaked in the wind, and the kitchen sink leaked when you turned the tap too far. But it was real. Mine. After years of sleeping in cars and empty apartments, the sound of my own keys in the lock felt like a miracle. Every corner of that small manufactured home became a project. I painted the walls a pale cream color, fixed the hinges, planted 2 roses outside the porch, one red, one white. The first night I slept there, I lay on the floor with nothing but a mattress and a blanket staring at the ceiling. It didn't matter that there was no furniture, no TV, no one waiting for me. It felt like victory. Weeks passed. I built my life slowly. Mr. Thompson congratulated me when I told him. Keep your head down, he said with that same gruff tone, and keep your door locked. I should have listened more carefully to that last part, because one mistake undid it all pride. I posted a picture online, a simple photo of me standing in front of the house holding the keys. The caption read, "From living in my car to owning my first home, never give up." It wasn't meant to brag. I just wanted to remind myself and maybe others that I'd made it through. The post exploded. Old friends I hadn't spoken to in years congratulated me. Coworkers commented with heart emojis. It was nice, warm. For a few days, I let myself believe the world was rooting for me. Then, one afternoon, there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, my heart dropped. Standing there, smiling too wide, was Daniel, my older brother. Behind him, his wife Melissa and their 2 kids. "Lucy," he said, like we were long-lost best friends. "Wow, look at this place." My grip on the door tightened. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" He glanced past me into the house, ignoring the question. "Heard about your big achievement. Saw your post, so proud of you, sis. You've come a long way." Melissa smiled thinly, her eyes already scanning the living room. "It's really cozy. Perfect for a family, isn't it?" Something about the way she said family made my stomach turn. I crossed my arms. "You didn't drive all the way here just to compliment my paint job. What do you want?" Daniel chuckled like I was being dramatic. "Easy, Lucy. I just thought it'd be nice to reconnect. You know, after everything." "I didn't think there was a connection left," I said coldly. His smile faltered for a moment before he plastered it back on. "Listen, it's been tough for us lately. You know how the economy is. Kids need space, rent's crazy, and since you've got all this room, we figured we could stay here for a while, just until things settle." I blinked. "You want to move in?" He nodded, completely serious. "Yeah. You wouldn't even notice us. We'll help with bills and everything. It's just temporary." My heart pounded. Anger, disbelief, panic, all mixing together. "Daniel, no. This is my home. I just got it. I'm not sharing it with anyone." Melissa sighed dramatically. "Lucy, we're family. Don't be selfish. You've got a roof, others don't." The irony of that hit like a slap. For years, no one cared where I slept. Now that I had something of my own, suddenly they cared. Daniel's voice hardened. "Don't make this difficult. We already talked to Mom and Dad. They said you'd understand." "Of course they did." I took a step back, trying to steady my voice. "You need to leave. Now." He pulled a folded stack of papers from his jacket and waved them in my face. "You might want to take a look before you make any rash decisions." I snatched them from his hand, scanning the top page. My name, my full name was there, but the signature wasn't mine. The document claimed that I'd agreed to let them live here indefinitely. "Daniel, what the hell is this?" "Just something to make things official," he said smoothly. "You signed it, remember? Last time we saw each other?" "I haven't seen you in 3 years," I snapped. He shrugged, that smug smile returning. "Guess your memory's not what it used to be." I stared at the paper, my heart pounding in my ears. It wasn't just bold, it was calculated. "You forged my signature," I said quietly. Daniel's smile didn't waver. "Big word, Lucy. You sure you want to accuse family of something like that?" Melissa crossed her arms. "Think about the kids. Where are we supposed to go?" Her voice was soft pleading, but her eyes were cold, manipulative. I'd seen that look before in my parents' kitchen the day they turned their backs on me. I felt the heat rise in my chest. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "You have 5 minutes to get off my property." Daniel's smile cracked. "Don't do this." "I'm done being the one everyone steps on," I said. "Not anymore." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You think you're better than us now, huh? You think this little house makes you something." I met his glare. "No, it just means I survived what you all tried to bury me with." For a long, tense moment, neither of us spoke. His wife's grip tightened on his arm, his kids shifting uneasily behind him. Then, without another word, they turned and walked toward their car. But the way Daniel looked at me before he left that quiet promise of revenge, I knew it wasn't over. I locked the door and leaned against it, trembling. My heart was still racing, but underneath the fear was something sharper resolve. They had thrown me out once. They weren't going to take what I'd built. Not this time. They came smiling like family, but I could smell the hunger on them. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind brushing against the windows made my pulse jump. I sat by the front door with a mug of cold tea, staring at the lock, waiting for another knock. But it never came. Not that night, anyway. The next morning, I drove straight to work. Mr. Thompson took one look at me and grunted, "You look like hell." "Family visit," I muttered. He didn't ask for details. He just handed me the shipment log and said, "Handle what you can, Connors. And don't let anyone walk through your door unless they've earned it." I didn't know then how prophetic that line would be. 2 days later, they came back. It was around noon on my day off. I was scrubbing the kitchen counter when the doorbell rang, 3 sharp knocks that made my stomach drop. Through the window, I saw Daniel's car parked in the driveway again, his wife sitting in the passenger seat. I opened the door halfway. "What do you want, Daniel?" He didn't even greet me this time. He stepped forward, waving a folder. "You left me no choice. You ignored the agreement, so I filed a complaint. You'll be hearing from the county soon." "Complaint," I said, narrowing my eyes. "About your fake papers." He smirked. "Fake you signed them. I have witnesses." I laughed, a short, bitter sound that surprised even me. "You're unbelievable." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "Listen, Lucy, this doesn't have to get messy. You can just let us stay. 1 room. We'll cover utilities. Keep things civil." The calm in his tone made my skin crawl. It wasn't a request, it was a veiled threat. Something in me hardened. "Give me a moment," I said, my voice soft. "I'll grab the papers." I walked calmly to the living room, pulled out my phone, and set it on the counter, camera recording. My hands shook a little as I positioned it facing the door. Then I picked up the fake documents from where I'd left them on the coffee table. When I returned, Daniel was glancing around the house again, like he already owned it. "Here," I said, handing him the papers. "Let's read them together." He took them smug, ready to perform his charade. "You signed right there," he started pointing. "And if you—" "That's interesting," I interrupted, "because according to my phone's recording from earlier, you just admitted these papers were part of your agreement, the same ones you forged." His expression flickered. "You're bluffing." I tilted my phone toward him. The red recording light blinked steadily. For the first time, he looked uncertain. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Behind him, Melissa's face paled. I kept my tone calm. "You can leave now, or I can call the police. Either way, I'm done playing family." He hesitated for one long, tense beat, then the mask slipped. His eyes darkened. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "No," I said quietly. "I think I finally stopped losing." And I called. When the officers arrived, Daniel tried to argue, waving the papers like they were holy scripture. But one glance from the officer was enough. The signatures didn't match. His story crumbled fast. They asked him to leave firmly but professionally. Daniel's face burned with humiliation as he gathered his things. Melissa wouldn't meet my eyes. Their kids watched from the car, confused and silent. As they drove off, gravel crunching under their tires, I stood in the doorway, heart pounding, hands trembling. But I didn't move until their taillights vanished completely. The silence afterward felt unreal. I locked the door, double-checked it, then slid to the floor. For the first time in years, my tears weren't from fear or pain. They were from relief. That night, I took out the broken doorknob, still dented from when they first knocked, and replaced it myself. The sound of the new latch clicking into place felt like closure. Then I sat by the window, staring out at the small patch of roses I'd planted. The red one had wilted slightly, but the white one was still standing tall, bending in the breeze, but not breaking. I picked up my phone and sent a short message to Mr. Thompson. "Got the house. Locked the door." "You were right. Some things you have to build alone." A few minutes later, he replied with his usual bluntness. "Took you long enough." I laughed softly, then set the phone aside. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. Every crack in the wall, every scuffed floorboard was a reminder that I'd built this life from the ruins they left behind. I poured myself a cup of tea, sat on the porch, and watched the last light of dusk fade behind the trees. For once, there was no fear of the dark, only peace. The daughter they threw away built her own home and locked the door behind her.